Okay guys, so welcome back again. So in this video, let's see that how do we set up our Nodejs Express application using Typescript. So without wasting any time, let's dive into our terminal and let's see that how do it's done. So firstly, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a new directory here and I'm simply calling it express.ts. So express-ts would be the name of my application or the directory in which I'm working upon. Now let me cd into this directory, that is express.ts, and now let me clear out again and let me see ls what's inside here. So it's an empty directory as of now. So the first thing which we need to do here is this, that we need to create a new npm project inside it. So I'll simply do npm init-y to keep all the default values, and it would basically create a package.json file. So let's see that what it has created. So it's created a package.json file inside this directory called express.ts. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to open this folder inside VS Code, though you can use any text editor you want to use, but I prefer to use VS Code. So I'll simply open it in VS Code by doing code dot to open it in VS Code. And now I'll go full screen here. Let me increase the font size here a little bit, not much. So now let me open the integrated terminal inside VS Code here, and now here I'm going to install a couple of dependencies here. So the first thing you need to do is to install Typescript globally on your system. So what you can do, you can either do this thing here, that is npm i-g Typescript, to install it globally on your system. Or what you can do, if you do not want to install Typescript globally on your system, then what you can do, you can simply install it as a dev dependency inside this project, and then we can simply use the npx command. So that's what I prefer to do. So I'll do npm i-d as a dev dependency, and I'll simply do Typescript like this. And now I'm going to use one more dependency, and that is called tsnode. So this is what I'm going to install. So these are the two dev dependencies which I'm going to install as of now. Or let me install one more dev dependency, that is called nodemon, which simply restarts the server when it says changes inside .ts files as well as .js files. So let me install them right now. And later on we'll be installing Express also. So now let me install Express. So let me clear out the console first here. So let me clear it out. So clear. So now I'll do npm i express, and now let's wait for a couple of seconds. And now let me minimize the terminal here, and we see that inside our package.json file we have our dependency, that is Express, and then we have some dev dependencies, that is nodemon, tsnode, and Typescript. So now what I'll do, I'll simply initialize a new Typescript project inside this project itself. So to do that, it is very simple to do. So for that, what I'll do, npx tsc --init, simply like this. And if you have installed Typescript globally on your system by doing npm i-g Typescript, then you do not need to prepend this npx here. You simply need to do tsc --init, because then tsc would be an executable inside your terminal, so you do not need to prepend this thing here. But I need to do so because I have installed it as a dev dependency. So what it will do, it will simply create a tsconfig.json file here. So let me minimize the terminal once again, and let's go to the tsconfig.json file. And here it contains a lot of options for you to choose from, but we are interested in only a few options here. So what I'll do, before looking into the options here, what we need to provide here and what we do not need to provide here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a couple of folders inside this project folder here, that is inside which my package.json file resides. So here we want to create a folder called source. So let me create our source folder here, and basically this source folder would be containing all our Typescript files here. That is, whatever we are going to write for our application, we are going to do inside the source folder. And then there would be another folder here inside this folder itself, which would be automatically generated by Typescript. That would be called dist folder, that is dist, or you can simply call that folder build folder, in which whenever Typescript is compiled down to JavaScript, all the files that are present inside the source folder that are Typescript files would be compiled down to JavaScript files inside that folder, that is either the dist folder or the build folder, or you can name it as in what you like, but I prefer to call it either dist or build. So now we see that inside our source folder we do not have any file here. So let me create one file here, that is app.ts, and that would be our entry point for our application. That is, whatever we are going to write it inside app.ts. And for now what I'm going to do, I'm simply going to log one statement here, that is console.log or if you cannot see, I can increase the zoom level here. So console.log 123, that is only the thing which is present inside app.ts file. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go inside my package.json file, and here what I'm going to do, I'm going to define a couple of scripts here. So firstly, I want to define a dev script that would be running your development server. So here I would simply say nodemon app.ts, and this should be nodemon./source app.ts, because app.ts is inside this source folder, that is inside the current folder, and then inside the source folder we have this app.ts file, and that is what we want to run whenever we use our dev server here by doing npm run dev. And then we also want to have a start script, that is start script, and it would be simply called node./dist/app.js, because whenever this file is compiled down to JavaScript, that is app.ts, it would be compiled down to app.js. And since I am going to use dist as my build folder, or if you are using build as your build folder, then you can simply put in build here, simply like this, but I am simply going to call it dist here. So whenever this folder, that is the source folder, is compiled down, our dist folder would be containing all the files that are JavaScript files. So now to make that happen, that is whenever we want to compile the source folder and all the files should be present inside the dist folder, we need to do a couple of things inside the tsconfig.json file. So let me minimize the font size here. And now here what I need to do, here we need to choose the target here. So since we are using modern JavaScript, so we are good to go with ES6 syntax. So I am using ES6 here. That is the language version for emitted JavaScript. So I'm going to use here ES6. You can use ES5 also, that doesn't matter, but in my case I'm simply going to use ES6 here. And then we need to choose the module here, and module would be CommonJS for Nodejs Express application. And then we need to provide in the root directory of our application, and in our case the root directory of our application is this source folder. So let me search here for the rooter. So rooter, so it should be this thing here, that is the root directory of our application is, I simply uncommented this line here, and here the root directory would be ./source, simply like this, because this source folder would be containing all the TypeScript files. And then we need to define the outdir, that is whenever our TypeScript is compiled down to JavaScript, where it should be outputted to. So for that I am simply going to search for outdir inside this file. So it should be present here somewhere. So it is this thing here. So let me uncomment this line here, and in our case outdir would be simply dist. And if you are using build here, just make sure that if you are using build here, then inside your package.json file to start the application you need to provide in build here and not dist. So this thing you should remember. I'm simply outputting the TypeScript files to JS files inside the dist folder. So I'm simply making this outdir to be dist here, that is this thing here. And then we need to provide a couple of more options. So here we need to provide here a module resolution would be node. So let's simply search here for module resolution. So here we have this module resolution thing. So you simply need to uncomment this line, and it would be simply node here. And then I think that would be all here, because every other thing would be like for its default values. So like this should be at default, that is true, and this should be again true, and it is a default value. I'm not changing those values. And here we need to provide in one more property, which simply makes sure that only the TypeScript files that are present inside this source folder should only be compiled down to JavaScript files. If you have any other files inside the root folder of your package or your application, that is if you have any file here like let's say test.ts, if you have any file here, this file we do not want to compile it. It may be here for reference or for some other reason. So we only want to make sure that only the files that are only the TypeScript files that are present inside the source folder should be compiled here. So for that, what I'm going to do, let this test file test.ts be present here, and here let's go to the typescript.config file, that is tsconfig.json file, and here we need to simply provide in one more property here, that is include. And here what we need to include, we need to simply include the .source folder, that is this folder should only be compiled. So let's save this, and now let me open the terminal here. And if we have a look at the source folder, we currently only have this app.ts file, and it simply has this log statement. So let's try to compile it to JavaScript. So let me clear out the screen once again. And now what I'll do, I'll simply do npx tsc, simply like this. That is the only thing you need to do. And if you would have installed TypeScript globally, then this tsc command would be available inside your terminal, and then you do not need to prepend npx. So that's one thing you should make sure, that if you have installed TypeScript globally, then you do not need to prepend npx. So now let me simply do enter. And now it would take a moment or so, and now we see that we have a dist folder present here. And if we open this dist folder, we see that we have this app.js file. So now let's try to start both the applications in dev mode and in the start mode also. So for the dev mode, we can say npm run dev, and it would start the application using the nodemon thing. And we see a log statement here, that is 1 2 3. And if we simply change this 1 2 3 to 1 2 3 4 and we save the application, then we see that the application is again started, and now we have this log statement. So let's stop this application, and now let's simply go to our dist folder here, and we have this app.js file. And to start this file or this application, what we need to do, we need to simply do npm start, simply like this, and we see that we get this log statement. So we see that everything is in its place and everything is working. And now let me show you one more thing, and that is the reason of including this source folder here. So let me comment this line out from here, and let me save it, and let me go to my terminal once again, and let me clear out the screen. And now we see that we have this dist folder, and we have this app.js folder, and we have this test.ts file. So if I did here npx tsc, simply like this, then watch what would happen. Firstly, this source folder would be compiled down to this dist folder, and then this file would also be compiled down to JavaScript. Just wait and watch, and we would be getting an error also. So let's press enter here, and we see that we get this error also, that is here. Let me show you the error first. That is, here we have provided in the root dir, and our root dir is this root directory, that is where it is, that is dist.source folder. But we also have this test.ts file inside our root folder. So this is also compiled down to this test.js file, as you can see here. So that is the error we are getting here in the console. So it is always recommended to include this net path here, that is, let me scroll down here, that is to include the source path. So that is why I have put this source statement here, that is this include statement here, not source but include statement. So just make sure that you include this thing here, otherwise you might get some errors. So that's all for the TypeScript configuration. So now let's start working upon the Express project. So let me delete this test and test.ts file because they are not necessary for this project. So if we have a look at the package.json file once again, we see that we only have one dependency here, that is Express. And now we need to install the types that are provided by Express. So let me do that. So let me clear out the console. So I'll do npm i-d, because we are only working with TypeScript whenever we are inside the development environment and not in the production. In production environment, whatever is going to be used is this dist folder, that is our basic JavaScript folder. So whatever dependencies I'm going to install here, or whatever types for all the packages what I'm going to install, or what you should install, should remain inside a dev dependency. That is, they should be a part of dev dependency and not inside the dependencies here, because eventually these are only for development purposes and not for production purposes. So therefore I'll simply do npm-d at types /express like this, and then we would be also installing types for node. So @ types /node, and then let me install this as of now, and then I would be installing one more package, and I'll let you know that how do we need to do that. So now we see that here we have these dependencies, that is @types node and @types express. So now the types for the express packages has been installed and the types for node. So now what I can do, I can simply start working upon the app.ts file. So now let's go to the app.ts file, and here what I'll need to do, I simply need to import express from express. And see, we do not need to require here, we simply need to use import here and not require. So now we have imported Express, and now what I am going to do, I am going to simply say const app equal to Express like this. And don't worry about the types here, because here I am simply implementing a very basic Express application, and then later on we would be implementing the types here. And then finally what we can say apps.listen, and here we need to provide in the port, let's say 3000, and then we have a callback here, and here we can simply log here, that is server is on port something. So let's say this rocket, like it's a rocket server when we are using Typescript. So server is on port 3000, simply like this. So let's save this. And now what I'll do, I'll simply listen for the root route here or for the index route here. So what I'll say, apps.get / and just stay with me, because it is not going to be a basic Express application like JavaScript like you are seeing right now. We are simply going to convert this to TypeScript. That is, how do you use TypeScript inside an Express project? So I need to provide you with the basic skeleton of the default Express template, and then we'll be migrating this to TypeScript. So then we have a callback here that takes in request, response, and next function, simply like this. And here we can simply say res.send like hello from TS app, simply like this. So let's save this. And now we have a very basic Express application. And if we wanted to run this application, we can simply do npm run dev, and our application would be started on port 3000. And we see that we have this application running on port 3000. So which means that our application is up and running. So let me minimize the terminal once again. And now what I'm going to do here, that is, currently we have only written JavaScript, that is plain JavaScript here. There are no types present here. So we do not know what is the type of this request object here. What is the type of this response object here? What is the type of this next function here? So what we can do, we can import something more from this Express package. That is, we can have the request type here, then we can have the response type here, and these are all coming from at types / Express package that we installed as a dev dependency. And then we have the next function here like this. So what we can do, we can simply provide in the type here like this, that is request. That is, request is a type of request, response is a type of response, and this next function is a type of next function like this. And now again, that is, what is this app here? So currently it is an Express application, but to give this app, that is to give this variable app, or to give this instance a type here, what we can do, we can import one thing more from this Express package, and that is application. Because whenever we create an app using this app Express package like this, then it returns as an instance of an app that is of type of application. So we can say this as an application. What this listen method would give us back, basically it simply provides us with the server. So where the server comes from, it comes from the node package. That is, it simply provides us with a very basic HTTP server. So what we can do, we can go at the very top here, and here what we can say import something, let's say something from HTTP, because we are creating an HTTP server here. And here we can simply extract the server thing here like this. And now what we can do, we can simply say const server equal to this thing, and this server would be of type of server, simply like this, because this app.listen methods provides us with a very basic HTTP server. So we know that this server would be type of server which comes from the HTTP package. So now let's save this application once. And now what I'll do, I'll simply define the Express error handler here, because till now we have done the basic steps. So now let's implement the Express error handler. So for that, to use an Express error handler, what we need to do, before that we need to use the 404 route. That is, how do we handle the 404 route? So for that, I'll simply say app.use like this, and then we have the callback here, that is request, response, and next. And again, if you want to provide in the types here, that is for this request object, response object, and next function, you can simply provide it as it is. So let me simply copy it from here, and let me make it put it here, because it would make more sense to you. And then here what we need to do, we simply you need to use this next function here. So we can say next, And here we can simply use one more package here to create the error function. So for that, let me stop the server here and let me install one more dependency here. So let me stop it. So let's clear out. So let me install one more dependency, that is npm I http errors. This is the package I'm going to use for error handling in Express application. So it would be a dependency and not a dev dependency like this. So let me install it. And now I would also install the types for this http errors package. So let me clear out. So npm I -d at types. So you see one thing, that is whatever package you are installing, if you want to install the types for that package, you simply need to prepend add types / and then the package name, and then simply install it as a dev dependency. So now let me simply press enter here. And now the package is installed. And now what I'll do, I'll simply do again npm run dev like this. And now let's minimize the terminal here once again. And now here at the very top, I simply want to import that create http error package here. So create http error from http errors. And now whenever we are inside this 404 route, we are simply going to say next new create http error dot not found, simply like this. And now here we need to create our error handler. So what I'll do, I'll simply call this error handler to be error handler. So I'll say error handler, simply like this. And now this would be something. So for now, it is simply a placeholder value here, but this error handler would be something. And now after this, we would be saying that app.use this error handler. That is simply a middleware here for error handling. So I would say error handler like this. And now it says that it cannot use this error handler because we do not, because of something. So just don't worry about this. So firstly, what an error handler takes, it is a function here that simply takes in request, response, next, and error as the first parameter. That is the major thing. That is, any error handler would contain error as the first parameter here. And now how do we see that we have the red squiggly lines all over it. As you can see that we have red here, red here, red here, red here. And it is because we haven't provided in the type of this error handler. So how to provide in the type here? So it is very simple. It is again coming from the Express package. So let me simply import one more thing, that is error request handler, simply like this. So let's save this. And now we have this thing here, that is error request handler. So let me copy that thing and let me simply make this type, that is the type of this error handler, to be error request handler. And now we see that all the errors are gone. And now what we can do, we can simply do the generic stuff, that is res.status would be like error.status or 500, simply like this. And it is like plain Express thing, so nothing fancy about it. And then we can simply say res.status would be error.status or 500. And similarly for the message, we can simply say error.message, simply like this. And now this would work as an error handler for our application here. So this is how you set up Express application with Typescript. So let's see that how do we compile it down to our JavaScript thing here. So we see currently we have only this thing here that is coming from the previous app.js ts file which we created at the start of this video. And now let me simply stop this application here. Let me clear out the console. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to simply do npx tsc, simply like this. And again, if you have installed TSC, that is TypeScript globally, then you do not need to prepend TypeScript. And now we see that we have this app.js file here, which simply contains our application here. And we are not interested in what's inside here. We are simply interested in running this application. So what we can do, so we can simply say npm start. So we see that our application is on port 3000. And here what we can do, we can try to go to that URL. So let's go to localhost port 3000. So we see that hello from TS app, that's what we expected. And if we go to any other route which doesn't exist, we see that this route is not found. And now one more thing, or one last thing for this application. Let's stop this application and let me simply do npm run dev. So what we can do, Here we have hard coded the port number here. So what we can do, we can also define the port to be of type of number. So we can say const port would be of type of number, where it is. So it should be of type of number, and this should be equal to number. And then here typically the port would be coming from the env file. So what I'll do, I'll simply create an env file inside my root folder and not inside the source folder. Just beware, whenever you are using environment variables, they should be inside your root folder and not inside your source folder. So I am simply going to create a new file here, that is .env, simply like this. And now we can see that this .env file is present inside the folder in which both source and dist are present, and not inside the source folder. Otherwise it would give you an error. So here we can simply say process.env.port, and we are yet to define the port inside our env file. So let's define it right away. So port 3000, and here inside this thing, or if this number cannot be casted, or if this variable that is present inside the env file cannot be casted as a number, then we are simply going to use 3000 as our default port. And now we can use this port here, that is this port variable here, and here we can use template string like this, and here we can provide in port, and we can use backticks instead of single quotes here, simply like this. And now we need to install one more package here, and that is the .env package to use this env file. So what I'm going to do, I'm simply going to install one more package, that is npm i .env. I suppose that's what it is called. So now I can simply go to my application here at the very top, and here what we can do, we can simply import config from .env, not .env but .env, like this. And here we simply need to execute this config here to load all the environment variables present inside the .env file. So if we run this, or if we save this file, and let me change the port to 4000 to make it more intuitive. So we should be having our application running on port 4000. So let me try to do npm start, or let me firstly do npm run dev to run it in dev mode. And the application should start on port 4000. So if we reload the page, we see that the site cannot be reached because it is running on port 4000. So let me run it on port 4000, and we see that we are getting the application here. So let's stop the application and let's quickly compile it down to JavaScript. So npx tsc, and it would take a moment or so. And now what I'm going to do, I'm simply going to do npm start like this. And now the application is on port 4000, and if we reload the page, we see that our application is up and running, and our 404 error handler is also working. So guys, this is all about handling types inside a Nodejs Express application, and this is how you set up an Express Nodejs application using TypeScript. So guys, that's all about this video. So if you have liked the video, do hit the like button, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel, do subscribe to the channel. It helps me a lot, and it also motivates me to make more videos. So thank you, bye bye, tata, take care, and have a good day and have a great day.